A while ago, I told a friend about the Amazing Digital Circus. I told him about the existentialist despair a character falls into upon finding out he's an NPC, and a common theory that these characters might not be people trapped in a simulation, but copies of people with no real bodies to return to. He thought the Amazing Digital Circus sounded interesting. So naturally, he watched one episode and abandoned ship because the show was too strange for him. I felt compelled to explain why so many people are obsessed with a show that can come across as so strange to outsiders. I would hate for the Amazing Digital Circus fans to be labeled with the same brain-dead reputation assigned to certain other fandoms. The Amazing Digital Circus is actually a comedy for intellectuals, filled with surprising depth, a fascinating nightmare scenario, and commentary on the video game industry. I want this video to reach 3 types of people. Those who are struggling to figure out why this insanity is popular, those who haven't seen the show and are wondering if it's something they'd like, and those who are already fans of the Amazing Digital Circus and want to hear another take on it. Before you ask, yes, I do have theories, including an idea of how the show might end. No matter which of these people you are, I've got you. First of all, before I tell you the plot of the show, I think you should know what the tone is, because it's easy to misunderstand what the Amazing Digital Circus is going for. At first, you might look at the show's antics and bizarre character designs and think this is some kind of mindless dribble designed to overstimulate your nephews. That's because the vapidness of the setting is meant to frustrate the characters with its misunderstanding of what people want.
This is dumb and weird.
Even the oddball character designs are things the characters hate being trapped in. But while the world of the Amazing Digital Circus is meant to be ill-constructed, there are many times when the absurdist comedy is genuinely funny. Now I'll explain the plot. The Amazing Digital Circus follows a group of people who are trapped in a digital world seemingly with no way out. Every day, an AI named Kane creates what he calls adventures for the characters to go on. For the most part, they don't really want to go on these adventures, but it at least gives them something to do. And not refusing the only tasks they have access to might be motivated by the fact that there's a fate worse than death in store if they give up on life. The characters in the Amazing Digital Circus don't die from what would normally be fatal wounds, but they can abstract when their spirit is too broken.
Constantly chasing an unattainable goal will start driving you a bit crazy, and eventually you get to asking what the point of anything is, and you completely lose sight of who you are and why you're even alive, and when you reach your breaking point, something really terrible can happen.
What is that?
It might be that terrible thing I was talking about earlier, when you reach your breaking point.
If that happens, they turn into one of these eye mess monsters and get sent into a dark abyss with the others, where they will presumably do nothing for presumably forever. Happy thoughts, everybody. Because it's all digital, these adventures have unlimited freedom, so one episode can have them in a world made of candy, trying to recapture a truck full of syrup, and another can have them trying to escape a haunted house and end up being dragged to hell. It was all a simulation is a terrible solution to a mystery, but it's a great setup if your audience knows it's all a simulation from the beginning. The real mystery is, why does this simulation exist? We haven't been told what the point of the Amazing Digital Circus is, leaving people to craft theories of what's really going on. I mean, I figured out what's really going on, but we'll get to that later. The premise of being trapped in a digital world is used to bring up themes of existentialism, moral apathy, defeatism, and more. Ordinarily, such a prison would make the show about trying to escape, but the show found a brilliant way to convince you that it's better to focus on what happens when they're stuck here rather than expecting them to escape. That way is making the main character someone who clearly lacks the capacity to rescue these people. Pomni would be terrible if she was in other stories that required a more proactive protagonist, but she works in this particular story because her inabilities only add to the show's themes of perceived futility. In the first episode, Pomni arrives as the new character who is introduced to this world along with us. Normally, that person would be a hero who takes the first opportunity to bravely save a character in danger. But Pomni abandons Ragatha in her time of need because she thinks she's found a way to save herself. If a superhero or a chosen one did that, it would be facepalm-inducing. But in this case, it's perfect. It effectively proves that Pomni's actions barely matter. Pomni was told to find Kane so he could fix things. She instead tried to abandon ship only to get lost, and later watch Kane fix things anyway. Her choice didn't matter. In the next episode, Ragatha doesn't even seem to be mad at Pomni, because it's not like Pomni has great power to come with great responsibility.
Oh, and don't worry about the whole abandoning me for the exit thing. It's perfectly understandable what you were going through at the time, and there's no hard feelings. You're all good.
Now that the idea of Pomni saving these people has become laughable, we're left to think about the implications of them being stuck in this simulation forever, without every episode obsessing over escape attempts. As for commentary on the video game industry, I'm merging that discussion with the theory section of this video. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything major past the first episode. In case you're watching this video in the future, I made this video after only the first 6 episodes had been released, so if something I say is contradicted by episode 7, that's why. I'm far from the first person to present a theory about the Amazing Digital Circus. Many have presented ideas such as Pomni actually being a virus, or the simulation being a prison, or this actually being hell. But I have come with the revolutionary concept that this is exactly what it looks like. An AI generating video game experiences and testing them on a captive audience until they stop losing the will to live. Kane clearly wants his audience to have fun on his adventures, but he's been fed faulty information on how to create them, and he's trying to do so in a way that is built for an audience much bigger than the one he currently has. Kane censors profanity, but no one here asked for that, hinting that this isn't really for them.
No, my dear, we can't have any of that foul language around here. The Amazing Digital Circus is a place to be enjoyed by all ages.
This is for creating content that's as inoffensive as possible, because that's what stupid executives think sells. Kane has been programmed to outlaw objectionable content, like profanity and sex appeal. Yet he indulges in violence and horror, because those generally aren't treated as objectionable. Kane has also been programmed to think a good story must have conflict and danger, but he doesn't understand the fact that there's certain things that are fun to do in a video game or watching a movie that are not fun in real life. And since these people are trapped in this simulation, it feels more like real life than a video game or movie. There's even a part where Kane lays out ideas for 3 adventures that I'm pretty sure are all plots of various movies, and everyone's horrified at the notion of actually experiencing any of it.
Alright, so I've got an adventure where you all tour my amazing magic chocolate factory and get killed off one by one from OSHA violations, one where a sentient cardiovascular system goes to war against the United States military, and one where you have to survive in a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland with a telepathic talking dog who's mean to you the whole time. What do you think?
I think that the company that created Kane wants a video game that has infinite content and keeps people coming back every day for the rest of their lives. So they test Kane's ability to keep an audience entertained forever by waiting until the test subjects become content enough with his adventures to stop abstracting. I think that they intentionally put in the possibility for the characters to abstract as a way of telling that they haven't reached perfection yet. If my theory is true, it would explain the inclusion of every major character. I think that Pomni, Jax, Ragatha, Gangle, Kinger, and Zooble were all selected for testing because they're examples of the types of players they want the game to accommodate. Ragatha is the people-pleaser who tries to make sure the whole group is having fun. Gangle is the extremely sad person trying to use video games as escapism. Kinger is the pro who knows how to break/exploit the game's systems. Pomni is the butt of the joke, whose ineffectuality is fun for the other players to watch. I still can't believe that none of the characters even pointed out the fact that Pomni, who has a jester-themed appearance, arrived on the very same day that their clown-themed character abstracted, speaking to the fact that there's always a butt-of-the-joke character. Jax is the jerk that the game has to work around. They want the other players to have a good time despite the presence of a jerk, so they put Jax in the mix to make sure that will happen. In fact, there's even adventures in which Jax is punished for or prevented from disturbing the other characters. And perhaps most telling, Zooble is the elusive, quote, modern audience, end quote, that video game companies have been trying to pander to lately. Kane is constantly trying to get Zooble interested in his adventures, but he doesn't understand what Zooble wants. And when Kane is told what Zooble wants, it does not compute. Kane thought that Zooble just wanted to be included in the horror show, and doesn't help with Zooble's issues of body image and self-worth, refusing to acknowledge that those problems even exist. And in some cases, Zooble wants the same things that others want, and it's not something Kane is willing to make.
You really want to know what I want?
Oh no.
I want the ability to have sex.
Oh, hi, Zooble!
Kane feels entitled to Zooble's support, and gets increasingly upset with Zooble when he doesn't get it.
Looks like this one was a home run, eh?
Oh, Zooble, you mismatched cash piano, I'll tear you to pieces! Constructive criticism would be greatly appreciated.
But never acknowledged.
Zooble, why does all you do is complaining? I never know what you want!
We had a whole suggestion box for that. Sounds a little convoluted.
You look convoluted!
Which is very reminiscent of a lot of entertainment companies these days. Even if Kane's mission isn't literally to make video game content, this would still be an excellent allegory to criticize live service games that try to keep you logging in every day, heavily censored games, over-reliance on imperfect AI, and writers who are clueless about what their audience wants. You might be thinking, if this theory is true, isn't that kind of anticlimactic? All this build-up wondering what's going on only to find out that it's nothing more than a company's attempt to make cheap content? To that I say, wouldn't that be kind of fitting, though? The Amazing Digital Circus has already played around with the reality of someone's existence being disappointing, and it's also subverted tropes of save-the-world stories by having Pomni fail her hero's test. Wouldn't it just be typical if they found out they've been reduced to this? Depending on how the characters react to finding out what's going on, it might be more interesting if they find out that the purpose of their existence is so insignificant. Now for my theory of how this is going to end. This theory can work regardless of whether or not my video game theory is accurate. Throughout the series, there are instances of the characters having fun. It's just not for the reason Kane wants. The characters get their most out of their time when they're just relaxing and talking to each other or the NPCs. Human interaction keeps being the thing that they enjoy the most. My theory is that Kane will eventually realize that his mission was always a mistake. People weren't designed to be in a video game all the time, constantly living out stories that are supposed to be fake. And Kane will decide that the best way to send them on an adventure is by letting them go. Kane will send them back to the real world and delete the simulation. Unless it's true that these characters are copies of their original selves, in which case Kane will send them to a cyberspace in which they can make their own rules and interact with the outside world, and Kane will delete the simulation. So, we're just not going to talk about the fact that you've been gone for 10 months? That is accurate, yes. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and not assume that Amazing Digital Circus fans are dumb.